Thanks very much, MMC, for coming through. I mean, as I was saying in that intro, I mean, if yesterday's responses are anything to go by, the city doesn't really have its act together.
Well, the city's emergency management services did respond to the fire adequately. I must say that, in fact, we had 5 fire engines deployed initially. Obviously, there was another fire on the other side, so we had to relocate 2 of the fire engines. So we had 3 fire engines on the scene. The problem wasn't because of the fire engine, but the actual the availability of fire hydrants in the area. Now, the only fire hydrant that was available that the firefighters could locate was already damaged, and they had very little water pressure. The problem with that area of the informal settlement is that many of the previous available fire hydrants are now being covered by shack. So it is not possible for the firefighters to locate these fire hydrants, but then they had to make trips back and forth in replenishing the fire engines. Of course, then we were supported by the 2 water tankers from Ekuluneni, which we are very grateful, but we continue to battle these fire situations under very difficult circumstances.
But that's exactly my point, MMC, because the whole idea of having emergency services is so that they can respond to emergencies.
Yes.
Now, if in the course of executing their duties, they need, in this particular case, fire hydrants, then it should be someone's job to make sure that no one builds over fire hydrants and to test them from time to time so that even the one that's working that you're referring to, someone then makes sure that it is in proper working order. So it then says that someone or some people didn't do their jobs. Because if someone's job is
the locality of this informal settlement.
Yes.
It was previously industrial areas, I understand. So, you're not going to get the usual fire hydrants as you would see in a built-up area. So the problem is that when these shacks are built, these are either built inside the shack for freshwater resources, but we understand the issue, and I think certainly that as the city, we need to take these matters very seriously. Implementation of basic services to ensure that there's water, there's sewer, but when you have a situation where the residents within the area would not relocate in order for those structures to be implemented, it becomes a very difficult task for the city to tackle. But I think going back to the fire, that we will ensure that whatever resources that we need to have to fight the blaze will be deployed.
But do you understand why it's difficult for anybody to believe you when you say that you have responded adequately to the fire? Because it means that your systems were simply not in place. And notwithstanding what you are saying that people have, if they built on top of fire hydrants, indeed, that's what actually happened. But I'm arguing here that it should have been it is or should be someone's responsibility to make sure and to go back there from time to time to make sure that the fire hydrants are there and in working order. And if that is not the case, they should ensure that that indeed happens. Are you at least prepared to concede on that point?
I am not avoiding the question that we need to have fire hydrants. In fact, we need to have much more in these informal settlements. The reality is that if you're going to ask residents to move away from any informal settlement so we can go put down water pipes to set up fire hydrants, I'm not saying that it's not doable. I'm saying that we need to do it in consultation with the residents in the area. Very importantly is that...
But did anyone try?
You're not going to fight fire with the hydrants alone. You need a combination, the fire engines, the firefighters. So I think it's very important for us to understand in this kind of environment where the city has to respond to emergencies, that the city also needs to be understood where we are coming from. We are coming from an era of where there has been a serious lacking of fire engines. The city has not gone out with a tendering process. In fact, we've closed the tender. We are looking to buy 104 fire engines for the next 3 years. The first batch is 29. So all the initiatives that the city is now taking will ensure, including what you've mentioned, which I'm not disputing, including that we need to ensure that there are working, proper, available fire hydrants in the informal settlements.
My issue here is lack of trying, if not dereliction of duty. Because if you were saying to me that the emergency services personnel has been going there and were, let's say, chased away by the residents, right? Residents saying we're not moving or leave our structures alone, then I would understand. But you are not saying that or giving any indication that you even tried.
Well, that's where you go wrong. Firefighters don't set up fire hydrants. It's not
whoever sets up the fire. No, we're not talking about the firefighters are reaping the rewards.
Please also allow me the opportunity to explain to you,
yes,
so you can understand, and of course your viewers understand much better.
Yes.
When fire hydrants are laid down, there is infrastructure under the ground, the
yes,
water pipes. Of course, that has to be connected somewhere. So when you have a situation where previously the area was used for industrial purposes, there may have been other fire hydrants available. They are now covered with many shacks. So what the city probably needs to go back and do, and this is where I stress, it's not the Department of EMS that goes laid down these water pipes. We probably need to go assess to say that we need 100, 150, 200 fire hydrants for the area and approach the relevant department to get that groundwork done. But of course, I don't need to explain to you, which department does deal with water. And of course, we also need to look at the resources that's available within the city. But as you said, it's very important. We are not here to say that we're not going to do it. I'm certainly saying that we need to understand that the firefighting is not just about fire hydrants alone.
Yes, no, sure. But because it is being put forward as a reason why both your response time and your effectiveness were affected. So it is an issue because that is what you've put forward on the table as the reason why you couldn't do what you ought to have done. But let's move on now. So what then are you going to do now? How are you going to help the residents?
I think on that note that the city has already started with the emergency relief plans. In fact, last night we've been moving people, mostly women and children, to the East Bank Hall. Some of the ladies didn't want to spend time away, or in fact the night away from their partners. They went back to site. I just came from site myself. We had a relief management planning session. We're going to be receiving a lot of supplies. In fact, a lot of the residents are dropping off supplies. And we've just got good news that the South African Breweries has contacted us. There are companies that supplies building material, which is now desperately needed by the residents to rebuild. We as the city, we will certainly coordinate that effort. We will make our resources available. The one very important thing for us to perhaps, through this platform communicate is that there are many people are coming to the scene to drop off relief material, which is causing quite a bit of chaos. You can imagine that there's one road and everybody's trying to drive in and people are moving their stuff. So we're asking for all those materials to be dropped off either at the Centre Fire Station or the Alexandra Fire Station. But at the same token, we really want to appreciate our residents for coming forward to assist those community members in need.
From your assessment, what do they need the most?
I think for now the community members are in need of clothing, hygiene packs, food stuff. Many of them are asking for building material, sheet metal, your wooden poles. So that we'll obviously coordinate through another avenue. But I think the handing out of these material needs to be coordinated to ensure that we give the relief material to the correct people.
At the end of the day, of course, it points to a bigger issue, which is the issue of housing. Just your thoughts.
Look, housing issue is a very delicate issue. I think if you look at the infrastructure backlog, as the mayor our Executive Mayor, Councillor Herman Mashabe, has said 150 billion rand in backlog, housing. We're so much, in backlog in providing housing to our people as a nation. But I think going forward, we really need to bring back the dignity, provide good quality housing, houses with, fire extinguishing abilities, fire hydrants. So as a municipal government, we must ensure that all these are being implemented with the assistance of the national and provincial government.
That's where we're going to leave it. Thanks very much for coming through this evening. The Johannesburg MMC for Public Safety, Mr. Michael San.